Awareness Week, and this is done by Endor Pharmaceuticals, who were the pioneers in providing us with the atropine eye drops. So they have made those songs. We'll play some videos also afterwards.
आधा आधा घंटे का लेक्चर आधा
We are lucky to have Dr. K.K. Mehta, Padma Shri Dr. K.K. Mehta, who incidentally is an American board certified optometrist also. He has with us remit and he knows everything, right from ophthalmology to optometry. And we are so lucky to have him as a keynote speaker here today. Thank you so much. Stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Chandrashekhar. As a matter of fact, we know when I first, you'll have to cut the sound down a little. When I first came back and to practice in Bombay, nobody wanted to get operated for a cataract by me. Nobody comes in the first few years. So for the first 3-4 years, I survived on fitting contact lenses. And the whole thing happened, it worked about when I was at Morpheus. Montague Rubens was there. And Rubin had a rule in contact lenses that if you wanted to fit contact lenses, you had to wear them yourself. So you can well imagine a whole host of new doctors sitting there with eyes watering away to glory. In those days, they used much larger contact lenses than they're using now. And from there, then I picked up contact lenses. Then I got to know Newton Wesley well and some of the others at National Eye Research Foundation. Did my orthochondrology work originally there, and then came over here. And as I said, for the first few years, I lived on contact lenses. And contact lenses for me has always been a very good point. I spoke in those days, I should lecture quite extensively on optometry. But then, as time went on, cataracts increased, everything changed a little bit. Leaving that aside, today I'm going to talk to you on something which is totally a little different, off the line. Next. The clicker is here. Okay. I'm going to talk to you on high myopia with the polymer lenses. Am I coming in the way? I'm fine. You know, very often we have high numbers coming to you and you wonder what you can do with them. The polymer lenses is an excellent option. Something which I have been utilizing for a number of years. It has headaches and it has problems. Just like Bharat mentioned a little earlier, Bharat and I have been friends for a long time. And as we mentioned earlier, anything good is going to be there, it's going to have problems with it and you need to solve them. And to first understand exactly how the system works, let me go on to the slightly easier here, is you need to have a little basic understanding of what these systems work. Now basically the whole advantage of putting in a system whereby you can implant inside the eye is that you have an excellent quality of vision. You have no difficulty, as one would say, getting along. Vision is good and it is stable. For many prescription patients, it is excellent, and essentially it fits, as you can see here, behind the iris in front of the human lens. But you have to be sure that it vaults adequately so that the lens is not touched. It is not visible to others, and essentially any child, any person over the age of 14 years, up to the power of -20, up to 24 actually, you can now have them available, have adequate anti-receiver depth. Normally we say 1.6 millimeters is the ideal. Haven't had no significant change in the number, and I'm not currently pregnant. Interestingly enough, pregnancy does alter changes in the curvature. We were aware of them when we fit in contact lenses, that it does make life a little unhappy. but it does happen even more when you're doing ICL patients. It has the advantage that in case you fit a lens and the number alters radically, you can remove it and put in the new lens without any difficulty. So these are facilities and advantages which you have. As compared to LASIK, the quality of vision is excellent, there is no distortion, which is important. And the way it differs from other procedures is that you are not cutting the cornea at all. The cornea is not affected in any way. You are only placing a lens. And if you place a lens properly, for year upon year, you will have no difficulty at all. Only thing is you have to be sure as to what material you utilize. After a lot of experience, I have started with a VCR lens, which is a Swiss lens. We utilize as a polymer material, and I will remain with that. There are lenses which are now available, which are made in India and which have been quite successful, but they are hemo material, and hemo doesn't really work the same way. A polymer lens is 0.2, 0.3 millimeter thickness. The hemo lens is comparatively much thicker than that. There you have problems with ICL implantation, undercorrection, overcorrection, but you have to be careful what you calculate and you can manage it. Other big advantage is there is virtually no night glare and no halos, despite the fact that you have a moment. As you can see over here, the lens fits essentially, this is your lens as it fits here. That's the lens fitting in front. You can see it's a high myopic lens, and that's the human lens behind. You have to have enough of a gap. Normal gap which we normally recommend is about 0.3 millimeter running down. You can get gaps which are less, but then life can become very difficult. Recovery is fast. Selection criteria, as I said again, you have to have sufficient endothelial cells and should have no progressive keratoconus. We use it quite extensively with keratoconus nowadays, but it should be stabilized before you handle these patients. And ICL surgery, essentially, wherever you find you're having difficulty fitting a contact lens, or you have difficulty fitting glasses, or glasses are distorted, or the number is very high, ICL is a way for it to go. So, the question is, let us see a comparison of LASIK versus ICL. Currently performed series similar. The big problem is that in these sort of cases, when you measure it and see the difference, there's not much difference between one and the other. The best corrected visual acuity remains fairly stable. So it is a good system which works well. And as compared to the losses of gain, there's hardly any loss over a period of time. As a matter of fact, the vision recovers fairly rapidly. And one big advantage is there's no glare and flare. That is despite the fact that right in the middle of the lens there's a hole or a fenestration. When they first came out with these fenestrated lenses, we wondered as to whether a person would have glare, flare, arrows, but they apparently don't seem to have it. Which speaks a lot, not for the lens, but for the person upstairs, the good Lord, who manages to do half the work for us around here. Best corrected visual acuity working fine, the predictability is good, we tend to get excellent results, and the stability is there. So in many ways, it gives you excellent results without much of a problem. But the thing is, if ICL is all that good, then why doesn't everybody do it? The number of people who put in ICLs are limited to the fingers of one hand, essentially. You have very few people do them as a regular routine. And the reason is because of what? An ICL functions because it sits on the periphery and does not touch the lens at any place. If it touches the lens, you have a tendency and a prone to end up with a cataract. So the question is of calculation of what we call as a vault. And that is the whole secret of ICL lies. You calculate it accurately, your problems are negligible and you will not have any difficulty. And the golden rule for ICL positioning was that essentially we took the positioning and added half to the white to white measurement. Now white to white is one of those bugbears which people talk about. What is white? Which part of the cornea is white? Where do you measure from? How do you get it? You get all sorts of things worked out. Before we go any further, I'll just take you into a little basic anatomy. I'm sure you all remember it, but just to refresh your memory a little bit. You remember Schwarbe's line, It's a narrow white line in the inside of the cornea of the eye, and that is where the decimate ends and the angle starts. And the other line you must remember is the Saint-Paul-Licinian line. The Saint-Paul-Licinian line is the Schwarzschild line with pigment on it. That's all that it is. One big advantage in India, because we have tendency to have more pigmentation in the iris, the line seems to stand out a little more. So if you remember down, that's the Schwarzschild line, shows where it terminates. Does it have a pointer on it? It doesn't. Yeah, where the pointer doesn't work. Or another picture showing you where it comes, you see the little bump, Schwarzschild line right on top. That is where the trabecular meshwork inserts. Now, very important point, more so for people who are now doing glaucoma implants, because that is essentially where you place them. You measure it ideally nowadays with a digital caliper. All sorts of machines are there, but and you know there is an Indian hand measuring because she has gone to a marriage recently with the thing on the surface. And the white to white is a reliable one. You have to be sure that you calibrate it well and you utilize it. So there's no problems. I'll skip these two photographs and they're not coming very clearly, but one of the best ways of measuring the anterior chamber depth, which is also essential because you need to have minimum of 2.6 millimeters depth, is to use a Visante, which gives you that ability. Now these are some of the pictures which are taken after the ICL is put in. I want you to see the measurement which writes at 4.71 millimeter. That is the ICL on top and that's the human lens below. So once you see a measurement like that, you know that life is good. You can get them, if you are not very careful, you can find the measurements at degrees, and this is how you will see if the vault is high on a slit lamp, see a big jump. You will notice a little vault which is there here. And again, if the vault is very high, like a 9.21, you can get away, but it tends to cause irritation to the iris, and the iris irritation will end up with and swelling on the back of the macula, and land up with swelling there, resulting in a foreign vision. So you have to be careful to try and make sure that it stays there. Now if you can miscalculate, you can go down to as low as 267 microns without much of a difficulty. But when you go to 195, you are in trouble. Why? Because as you grow older and time goes on, the watt decreases with age. And that is the other problem which you have to consider. So ideally we now consider that 300 watt is ideal. Now with 47 watt, you know that you're going to get into trouble. So these cases, you just take the ICL out and replace it. Don't do much. As I said, it decreases with age. There are various studies which show that and prove that it arises. I won't get into that in detail. But essentially, the very important thing is the white-to-white measurement has to be perfect if you want it to work out. And even if you can calculate your lens, if you can't brace it perfectly, then you are in difficulty. So, one of the ways of making sure if you have a toric ICL, which is where we utilize it, is to try and utilize the size marker system where the data is fed into your eyepiece, where you can get away utilizing biometry as well as the detail running down. And just showing quickly, you have to tap the video, just tap it. Yeah. Just a short video to give you a few ideas, or let's see how it works out. You can cut the sound off. The ICL is very thin. You have to be careful not to handle it. They give you a little plunger with a cotton at the end, so that you really never touching the ICL. You have to feed it into the injector, and once the injector is fed in, then you use a little instrument like a forceps which holds the edge of the ICL and you drag it up to the front. Nowadays, they have just abroad, they have recently in the last 6-8 months have come out with preloaded ICLs which make this part of the fitting defunct. But this was essentially how all our old ICLs were fitted. And once you fitted it at the end and then you injected it into the eye without too much of a hassle. And the ICL goes in straight and you can just open it. Now if you have markers running, as we've seen with this system, you will automatically be able to get away without too much difficulty. Can you skip it? Okay. Just showing you some of the results. Results show that it is quite clear. Let me know when I'm running out of time, Guresha. And basically, these are the cases which we started fitting with. It's not working. Can you move it for me, please? Slide move. आगे कर दो बस. Why is it stuck? Technical. This much time I could have put an ICL also. Okay. So these are basically, as what say, accountability, and gives you the results running down, utilizing manual as well as digital methods, and it works fine. Finally, let me just close up. With keratoconus, this is what we now started utilizing quite extensively. You need a stable refraction, and we need to use a C3M first to stabilize the eye completely, utilizing riboflavin. And once it is done, these are the pictures that you see before and post-op after. And the instrumentation, etc., is basically identical. And the accountability which you see with these keratoconus eyes is surprisingly good. You can manage to handle large numbers of residual myopia as well as residual astigmatism up to almost 7 diopters comfortably in these cases. So this is a modality which is there. Patients are very happy. Clear flare halos are almost negligible, and it gives you the ability to have good vision which can be maintained for a good period of time, and patients are happy with the results. In conclusion, it's an excellent system. Everything seems to work fine, and as I say at the end, the happiness of a well-placed ICL is to be seen to be believed. In 48 hours, the patient is absolutely clear. She can read, she can walk her the laptop, she can do everything. And it has the advantage on the reflection. Thank you very much for your attention.
Rest Ophthalmic Society President Dr. Thorak to hand over a small memento to Dr. K.K. Mehta.